Let's talk about grids. It's such an important topic in design, and you're gonna hear differing opinions based on the types of project that people work on, like do they use grids or not. Um, some people are gonna swear by them as the most important thing in design. Others are just gonna dismiss them and explain their opinion why. And honestly, I'm somewhere in the middle. And that's because make a difference between something that I call a hard grid and a soft grid. When it comes to grids, the main reason why they exist is to ensure that we as designers introduce a lot of consistency in our designs. It also ensures that we create a sense of visual hierarchy with our designs. And finally, it guides us and our viewers and kind of their eyes at certain points of alignment that we create in our design. Now, when it comes to the history of grids, this is definitely not a course that's going to go into detail. But what I want to share is that initially they were used for designs on paper, and then you just have like one size, and you need to make sure that the content that you're working with fits onto that dimensions that you have. When it comes to web design, in like late 90s, early 2000s, most of us had screen sizes that had the same resolution. So once again, we were able to design, honestly, in early 2000s, I would design some kind of blog pages for my friends in school, and we would have our own like different layouts, but all of them followed a pretty similar grid. And often it was a 960 grid, so 960 pixels of width, and that kind of fit in all of the screens that you would have to design for. With 2007, when iPhone was released, a lot of people actually started to visit websites more and more from their mobile phones. Again, a lot of other smartphones entered the market. They all started to really focus on ensuring that the web experience now is easily transferable to the mobile. And there were different approaches on how you would work with mobile design. You would either create a dedicated design just for mobile and then another one for desktop, or you would try to think of your content in a more fluid way and figure out how it can scale from one size to another. And that's the point in time that we are now in, where it's kind of expected, like it's a norm that your website works on both mobile and desktop. And I did say mobile first because most of the website visits on most of the websites are going to be from phones. But yeah, that's kind of just a quick overview of what grids are, why we use them, what they're used for, how we think about them, and how it all started. So when someone says something like a grid, if we open up a desktop design like this, you're most likely gonna hear them talk about something called a 12 column grid. And it has some kind of set either width of columns or the width of gutter and margins, and then the width of column kind of scale. So that's this stretch model that we have in here. Basically, one of the ways that developers would create websites and dashboards and all of the other things was by using some kind of a framework. In the beginning, one of the most popular ones was Bootstrap. It kind of really popularized the way of thinking of 12 columns. And nowadays, we don't have to really worry about it or follow it so strictly. Discuss it with your developers, of course, before you start to plan your grid. Like, are there any limitations? Is this something that I need to consider when I'm planning the grids that I'm going to place everything on? But we're no longer limited most often to just 12 columns, and a big part of this module is going to help you understand how we can approach grids differently based on the type of project that we're working on and based on the type of device that that project is going to be viewed on. But let's say it's something like this, and you can now see this as something that I'm going to call a hard grid. And when it comes to all of the elements that I'm going to place on my hard grid, I'm just going to use them to size things that are the main elements on this page. So if I just place a couple of rectangles around, maybe this is some kind of a header here on top. Maybe this design is going to have some cards in here that are the main parts of the content. And then we're also going to have some smaller sidebar cards in here that are going to link to something else in the design. And what you're going to see is I'm not going to follow the grid when I'm placing anything inside of these main elements that I have on my design. Inside of them, I'm going to use something that I often refer to as a soft grid. So those are just like spacing rules that I keep in mind and share with my developers that we use across our designs and our products to ensure consistency. So I would have a spacing of 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, 32, 48, 96 or something. So it kind of scales as you get to the larger numbers. You're kind of skipping a lot of those numbers that are based on a particular number that you choose. I call it the base number. Most popular ones are either 4 if you're working on really small screen sizes and phones, most often phones, or 8s if you're working on desktops and kind of larger products. But you can play around with any other number. You're not limited to just 4s or 8s. They're just the most common ones, and there are a couple of reasons why, and I'll explain those as well. But basically, you can take one number and then multiply it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many times you're going to need it, and use all of those numbers as the basis for your spacing system. So you can take 5 and then 10 and then 20 and then 40 and whatnot, and you can pretty much create some kind of a spacing scale that you can use in your designs. So all those things are considered soft grid from my point of view, and that's something that you're going to use a lot more than the actual hard grid that you use to place some of the most important elements on. On phones, maybe the hard grid is not needed at all. So yeah, hopefully that makes you understand what some of these main terms are, and we can move on to our first lesson, where we're gonna actually start building grids with all of those things that I just mentioned in mind.